Hey, hey, hey. Happy 4th of July. I do hope that you have had a fun, restful, celebratory 4th of July. I can tell you what, I have. Oh, yes, I have. I have enjoyed myself these last 4 days. One, gifted myself with my own holiday. I give myself every Friday off. I started that in the year of 2022. I can tell you it is really one of the best things I have done for myself in this season of life that I'm in. So, yes. But I am on here for a special thing. I'm so excited. I don't even know what to do. I'm so super excited. I really am. I really am. Hold on, let me do this real quick. And so I'm not necessarily looking for an audience. I'm just doing something that I enjoy to do. And what I enjoy doing is reading. And what am I reading tonight? I am going to read a very small portion from a book, a brand new book that literally just launched today. And yes, I do have permission to read a little bit from it. I'm excited because this is from my own friend, my childhood friend, my friend that I've known since some of the most challenging years of life, and that is your teen years, right? And that is my friend Tasha Denese Bellamy. She has literally just launched and released her first book. The title of this book alone just captured me. The title of the book is titled Overcoming the Drug Addiction I Never Had. What? That title, whoo, the title alone, y'all, it gripped me because we grew up in a time of life when drug addiction to crack cocaine specifically had hit the streets running. And so I immediately when I heard the title and when I read the title, it literally gripped me and it immediately took me back to a time when I remember and experienced through people I knew and through loved ones, family, and friends that had become gripped with addiction to drugs and some to alcohol, how it actually affected us. So I was so anxious and I'm so proud and I'm so honored to be able to read and review this book. Whenever you see this, Tasha, I want you to know I appreciate you. I honor you in this moment. I celebrate you, my friend. I speak a blessing over this writing material that you have poured your actual life and heart out on pen and paper. When I tell you you're amazing, you are amazing. It takes a bravery that can only come from God to do something like this. So, the way I am, one, I love to read. Two, I don't need to wait. I couldn't wait. I didn't even want to wait until the actual book had come out. I actually, and she's so kind. She's gifting me a copy, but I didn't want to wait because one, I invest in people and their dreams. And so I went on and purchased the online version of the book because the physical books are still in production. So but I want to encourage you to support her, purchase this book. I promise you, you either are going to find yourself in this book or you know someone who fits her story. This is her personal story. This is her memoir of her life. I'm honored to do this and I'm excited. So I'm going to read for your pleasure a, the new release book titled Overcoming Drug Addiction. Overcoming the Drug Addiction I Never Had. Written by Arthur Tasha Denese. That's my friend, y'all. So, anyways, do I want? Let me give you some of the chapters in this book. The chapters are small. It's a very easy to read book, but it is so heartfelt and at some points heart wrenching. I can tell you, it was very, very early in the book that I felt myself well up with tears. Um, One, because when you're a young kid and you're a teenager, like you see things, but you may not fully understand them. And in reading this book, I be even now just thinking about it brings me to tears because it makes me realize like we were going through so much. You go through so much as a teenager, and sometimes you don't even know the strength that you have to survive and the things that people are going through, your friends, and you see it but you don't understand it, so we just keep moving to get through. And so I wish I was who I am today then to be able to help my friend, but we could never be who we are today had we not experienced, gone through, and survived what we went through back then. With that being said, this book starts obviously with her dedications and her preface to the book, which the preface, I was like, I thought I was already reading the book. It's that good. And then, of course, her acknowledgments. And then it opens up. I'll give you these brief chapters. There are several brief chapters. And remember, this is a memoir and it is titled The Drug Addiction Overcoming the Drug Addiction I Never Had by Tasha Denese. Title one or chapter one, Broken Heart, Fixed Vision. Chapter two, some wounds take more time than some wounds take more time to heal. Chapter three, Careless Ammunition. Ooh, that chapter, that one got me. Um, Chapter 4, Mama's Bait. Chapter 5, Our House Was Never a Home. Chapter 6, Closets Full of Secrets and Unhappiness. Number 7, Running Scared. Number 8, Her Trauma Caused My Pain. Ooh. Number 9, Muzzled into Silence. Number 10, My Pain Caused Her Trauma. Number 11, Cycle of Trauma. I might be off the numbers here. Number 12, Disrupting the Narrative, Fighting to Change the Narrative, Mirroring the Narrative. I can't wait to read that one. Number 12, and let me see if I'm right. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, yeah, that's right. Number 12, Cycle of Trauma. 13, Disrupting the Narrative, Fighting to Change the... Oh, no, I did that. Fighting to Change the Narrative, Mirroring the Narrative. Number 13, Escaping Smoke to be Scorched by Flames. Wow. Number 14, Searching for Perfection, Yet Creating Despair. 15, The Ramifications of Toxic Comfort. 17, Broke My Heart and Healed My Soul. Ooh. 18, My Soul Was a Recognizable Stranger. 20, Beautiful Flowers Covering Ugly BS. Hey, this is her raw, real life. It is what it is, right? I'm just going to name these titles because I'm off on the numbers. Inhaling Truth, Exhaling Chaos, Pain and Fear. Unraveling Family Ties. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's freedom. Breathing Again. Learning How to Love. Mustering the Resolve. Cleansing the old, anchoring in the new. Home was chaos until I chose to move away. From trauma to transformation. And then she adds a very tasteful ending to her book. And it's letters to release and healings. And there's letter number 1, letter number 2, letter number 3, and letter number 4. I'm not going to even jump to those, even though I want to. I'm just going to read until I get to it. Yep. Okay. So I'm not going to read her preface, I'm going to go right to the first chapter. And these are small chapters, so it's not even going to take long. It will be so easy for me to read this whole book. I actually read the book. So, anyways, here we go. This is titled Broken Heart, Fixed Vision. Again, the title of this book is Overcoming the Drug Addiction I Never Had by none other than new author Tasha Denese. Once upon a dream, I was engaged to be married. My fiance and I decided that we would have premarital counseling so we could both learn how to sustain our soon to be partnership. During our first session, our counselor asked us to explain what we each wanted from one another as we entered our new union. I was asked to go first. Now, according to my most scripted reality TV shows, there's a long, exhaustive set of obligations and a very personal yet common list of needs that most people expect to be met by their future spouse. Most often, on a basic level, these illusionary lists, or in some cases, delusionary, I like that, that was funny, include healthy communication, money management, and intimacy. But the only one I was able to express in that moment was my desperate need to know and feel that I was safe. Wow. When I read that, I literally felt that in my soul because my we she and I share probably we probably have way more in common than we knew, and especially in the areas of pain and hurt, rejection and neglect and all that good stuff, or not so good stuff. She continues to write. The counselor asked me to elaborate. Still dreaming, I began to choke up as I explained that I wanted to feel safe enough to allow myself to love and to be loved without any hesitation or shadow of doubt. Could I let my guard down and be emotionally vulnerable without fear, shame, retaliation, or resentment after openly sharing and expressing myself? Would I be subjected to struggle love? Would I have to fight for attention and affection and go above and beyond just to prove myself worthy of love and protection? Tearfully, my quavering voice managed to blurt out, I craved safety. I craved safety beyond the natural protection rules and masculine bylaws. I desired the comfort of knowing that no matter how many times I got it wrong, I'd still be given the chance to get it right. Instead of being carelessly tossed away again, I needed my life partner to hold a safe capacity of love and comfort for me in his heart, his heart space so deep that I could retreat into this space without any infestations from the outside world creeping in. This girl can write. Whew! Listen, when I read a book, you've got to capture me with your words. And Tasha, girl, your words are captivating to me. I love this thus far, okay? Without any sudden troubles or misunderstandings taking over or completely dissolving our alliance to each other, I needed, wanted, and deserved to feel safe. Then I quickly excused myself to the bathroom to blow my nose as my soft cry had turned into a full-blown Viola Davis snot tears. That was funny. That was funny to me. That is a hilarious line. No longer dreaming, I was completely awakened by my bladder, of course. But before I could get up to go pee, I sat with myself realizing that although the counseling session was just a dream, my tears were very real. My pillow was soaked because apparently I had been crying intensely in my sleep. As I attempted to compose myself and make sense of the dream I had just woken up from, my thoughts revealed to me the reality that I had never actually experienced any form of true comfort and safety from being genuinely loved and fully supported. Like this, that part, because this is my friend. Like knowing that now as an adult, that does something to me because that's my friend. And we, I didn't even know this is where she was. Not at any point in my entire existence, not in any of my romantic relationships, not within any of my friendships, not within my family, not from my siblings or other relatives. Sadly, most notably, not even from my mother, not from anyone. This was one of the most insightful yet heartbreaking moments for me to realize I had never, ever been loved enough and had never, ever felt safe. Never. I'm talking about that true, unrestricted love, an uninhibited zone of comfort and expressive freedom, genuine protection and lasting support. Unfortunately, what appears to be a basic emotional necessity for most was completely foreign to me. Now, I had most certainly witnessed demonstrations of this kind of unconditional love in other relationships around me and within other families. I had even admired and, to a great extent, envied the existence of palpable love shared in other people's lives. Over time, I've read hundreds of books, magazines, and other online sources about unrestricted levels of comfort and safety that develop from genuine, candid love. I just, up until that point, had never experienced it. Heck, even as I type these words, I have yet to experience it. I understood the Webster definition and had most definitely watched the ideology of all things love conveyed on television and in movies. And although I had yearned for a pure love connection with profound safety my entire life, I regretfully cannot recall any point when I had ever felt that level of assuredness. But don't worry, I did go, this is funny. Don't worry, I did get up to go pee and blow my nose in real time. When I returned to my bed, I accepted my reality. I put my head back onto my pillow and I soaked it up even more as I cried even harder, eventually drifting back off to sleep. When I woke up again, the tears had stopped, yet I still faced the heartbreaking truth of not ever having experienced genuine love or the reassurance of being safe enough to simply be. With this newfound reality weighing heavily on my heart, instead of ignoring my heartache and pushing through my projecting by projecting that I was fine on the outside while simultaneously crashing on the inside as I normally would, I decided to address my state of being by identifying the deep-rooted pain that had brought me to this point and obviously still resided somewhere deep within. The anguish that I can't say this word, adamantly, yeah, adamantly believed I had released eons ago, had undoubtedly altered my state of consciousness early on, and so much so that it became my belief system. I was still maintaining a skin tight grip on my role as a victim. That's a powerful line right there. Wow. I was still maintaining a skin tight grip on my role as a victim. I was the one who was hurt, and my bitterness and resentment had majorly become equal parts of my identity. And I concealed effortlessly. It was, to say the least, interesting to come to terms with the fact that making a positive and contentment, let me read this again. It was, to say the least, interesting to come to terms with the fact that the mask of positivity and contentment I had been subconsciously wearing to hide my past troubles, shame, and pain had been visible all along. That's good. Visible to most everyone except me, that is. Wow. So that's the opening chapter. The next one says is titled Some Wounds Take More Than Time to Heal. Some wounds take more than time to heal. Let me just drink. That first one, it actually comes in heavy. And I love the imagery of the dream. What a way to open that. When I tell you the talent in this writing is just phenomenal to me. And this is my friend, y'all. The talent is just awesome. So chapter 2. Some wounds take more than time to heal. By default and irrationally to a large extent, I've always preserved the notion that my traumas, all the emotional, physical, and sexual abuse I endured as a child, made me different from everyone else. Now I got to breathe on this one, y'all, because, yeah, I got to breathe on this one. I know that feeling. I know that feeling very well. It made me shamefully unique from everyone around me. So I guarded my shame and trauma as if my entire existence depended on it. My existence did depend on it to the point that I didn't know how to function without it. Ooh. Whew. Sadly, pain, dysfunction, and anger were the only foundational constants in my life. I was paralyzed by a severe degree of toxicity that I had learned to comfortably reside within. Even though I was embarrassed by the misfortunes of my past, I had no idea how to let the turmoil go. Oddly enough, and as ridiculous as it may seem, the turmoil made me feel something. I was petrified of the alternate possibility of feeling nothing at all. So I held on to the chaos that continued to fester inside slowly and silently because this chaos was all I'd ever known. Hey, girl. Hey, Tasha. Thanks for popping in. Girl, this book, girl, girl. Yeah, wow. Listen, when I tell you, you, the skill and the strength and the power it takes for you to do this, to write these heartfelt experiences, to write this, sis. Wow, I'm telling you. Okay, let me continue. My trauma became my life preserve and a barrier that prevented me from making meaningful connections with others, because I believed that being disconnected kept me safe from further hurt and rejection. Therapy provided a healing experience that encouraged both safety and trust, and taught me that disconnection because of significant trauma could become a starting point for healing and deeper reconnection. That's actually interesting. I like that. I had to build a healthy relationship with myself to repair my emotional wounds, mend the broken pieces of my inner child, and grow. It had taken almost half of my life to release the trauma I experienced as a child. I blocked out the reality of my past because of fear and shame. Been there, done that. Yeah. For years, I had convinced myself that I had healed, but the truth is, I was struggling with invisible scars that were yet uglier and far more painful than any physical wounds. The devastation that I experienced early on created anxieties that had a long lasting impact on my mental and emotional well being. These anxieties, as I moved into and throughout my adult life, became unfounded perceptions of threat, distrust, and pessimism. This reasoning became a stumbling block in the back of my mind that would not only impede my ability to make authentic connections within friendships and relationships, but ultimately would lead me to sabotage the relationships. I dressed up my intentional blockage in a beautiful and colorful costume that hindered any real healing progress. In order to get that the root in order to get to the root of my pain, I had to face the uncomfortable, traumatic memories before I could release the pain that I had gripped ever so tightly. Instead of helping me survive, the trauma of my past had hijacked my life and I became dysfunctional. Whenever I was triggered by memories of my past, my ability to effectively handle problems was impaired and my relationships disrupted. It took prolonged periods of time for me to calm down emotionally from even the slightest shifts in circumstances or my sense of identity. I became frozen emotionally, physically despondent, and mentally isolated. I couldn't think clearly or reply to someone rationally because I was unable to adjust my emotions. I had to learn how to rebuild trust and allow my heart to open in order to heal from the pain and restore my faith in the universe. And that process took much more time to achieve. Wow. Now, this one right here, this one, this next chapter got me, y'all. It's titled Careless Ammunition. This chapter starts out reading, I am my mother's firstborn child, the product of a teenage girl and a much older man who was already committed to another woman and had a family of his own. Because my father already had a family, I can only assume that, excluding the cheating on his wife to simply have a good time with my mother, a second family wasn't what he had bargained for. But apparently, after I was conceived, my mother had the ammunition she believed she needed to make him choose between his two families. She believed being pregnant with me was the leverage that she could finally use to control my father's decision. Unfortunately, he didn't choose her, so she left with me. Understandably, my mother was heartbroken and unfortunately was mocked rather than supported by our family. My father made it clear that even though he didn't want her, he did, in fact, want me. Out of spite, my mother made it clear that he would never see me. So she moved, carrying me far away from him. My father never met me, and I never knew him. I did, however, hear all the hurtful rumors about who he may have been, and that my mother may have not even known who he was. Undeniably, not knowing my father was a frustrating and painful reality for me with a host of other confusing emotions. But being teased, gossiped about, and demeaned by family members hurt much deeper than not knowing who my father was. After I was born, my mother resumed her carefree way of life as if I had never been. Wow, sorry about that. She became more and more reluctant to talk about my father or answer any of my questions about him as I became older and began to inquire. I can relate to that too. I really can. This part here sounds like my story. It really does. That's crazy. That's crazy. He was a part of her past that she didn't care to revisit. Sadly, there I was, reminding her of him every single day. For years, I wondered who my daddy was or where he was, and if he ever wondered about me or tried to come find me or rescue me. I often wished I had known him and had access to him just so that I could have an escape, an alternate life, just so that I could have my father, someone who I imagined and hoped loved me and wanted me from the start. Oftentimes, children build up a level of resentment towards their absent parent, but I never blamed him. I was never angry with him. Instinctively, I understood that it was my mother's choice and not his to deny us the relationship we both deserved to have. Eventually, my hopes of one day knowing who he was faded away, but I have never stopped wondering about him, even still. Sis, whew, I promise you, this sounds like my story right here. This part. My mother never married, and she was never prepared for the role or the level of responsibility that it required to be a parent. Based on my childhood experience of being left with various family members for extended periods of time, I learned quickly that parenthood was more of a burden of responsibility above anything else. Even after child number 7, my mother's stance never shifted. My siblings and I were simply the tokens of multiple failed relationships. Wow. We were the regrettable aftermaths of our mother's more and more self centered and self destructive attempts to satisfy her voids of self worth and self love with promiscuous desires. This explains to some extent why I was deprived of knowing who my father was and the reason it seemed so easy for her to walk away from her responsibilities of parenthood time and time again. Disastrously, my mother chose to run away rather than make a way for her children. Wow. I make no excuses, but rather emphasize her youth, inexperience, and her the lack of courage needed to overcome the levels of pain, rejection, and hardship she undoubtedly faced. I didn't understand it back then, but I eventually realized that walking away might have been the simpler of some extreme and difficult decisions that my mother just didn't have the mental or emotional capacity to make. That was a powerful chapter. Wow. All right. So I'm going to read this next one and I will decide if I will go on. This one is titled Mama's Bait. Since raising children alone is not for the faint at heart, I imagine the responsibility came with a few realities my mother simply wasn't built to handle. I also imagine that at some point she had genuine hope that each new relationship would last longer than the last one. But unfortunately, each subsequent choice led her down an increasingly reckless path of domestic abuse, cal- um, callous behavior, and an endless drug addiction. Even though I didn't understand what it meant, I used to pray for our family to hit rock bottom. That's what people, relatives, and others around us who knew about my mother's drug addiction kept saying it was going to take. They kept saying it was going to take before she would be able to turn her life around. Then and only then, they would say, would we have a chance at a new beginning, a fresh start? I believed with everything inside of me that whatever rock bottom was, it had to be better than the low point that we were already at. I kept praying for a better life to an invisible God. But after years upon years of the same drama, the heartache and distress, I determined that neither rock bottom nor God existed because obviously neither was ever coming to save us. Wow. That line right there is, hold on, as much, and you have to know me because I'm a minister and I believe solely in God and I trust Him in everything. But I know and understand where she was at this point, and I understand these words, and I honor you, Tasha, for being honest and candid and open. Wow, wow. I gotta read that again. She says, I have to go back. That's just good. Even though I didn't She says, even though I didn't understand what it meant, I used to pray for our family to hit rock bottom. That's what people and relatives and others around us who knew about my mother's drug addiction kept saying that it was going to take before she would be able to turn her life around. Then and only then they would say, would we have a chance at a new beginning, a fresh start. I believe with everything inside of me that whatever rock bottom was, it had to be better than the low point we were already at. I kept praying for a better life to an invisible God, but after years upon years of the same drama, headache, and distress, I determined that neither rock bottom nor God existed because obviously neither was ever coming to save us. So eventually, I stopped praying and I stopped believing a better life circumstance was even possible. Wow, girl, whoo, ha, that, yeah, this is heavy. But I can't stop reading. She goes on to write, she says, from the moment my mother brought me home from the hospital until around age 5, if I wasn't being left behind, we went from one household to the next. We lived with different family members, friends of hers, or pretty much whoever she could tell the saddest story to and gain the most sympathy from to convince them to open their doors to us. Oh yeah, my mama was a true con artist at heart. She was beautiful and she used that beauty to manipulate people into giving her just about anything she wanted, which initially wasn't much more than a place to dump me off so she could keep living her free and easy life void of any responsibilities. Most of the time, she would simply disappear for weeks and sometimes months at a time, only to return when she needed a safe place to lay low or to hide out. She would stay long enough to recover, gather herself, and finesse her way into more spending money. She never returned for me until she had inevitably worn out her welcome and had run out of money, lies, and excuses. Then off we went to the next destination of compromise. I was the bait she used to get in, the threat she used to leave, but never the reason for her to just stay home. I'm not exactly sure when my mother's drug use began, but using me as bait started pretty much immediately after she learned that I was conceived. Wow. Wow. Next chapter. Our house was never a home. And I think I may read this one and the next one. And you gotta buy the book. That's the deal. You just gotta get the book. This is just the opening. Gosh. Tasha, I'm telling you, my hat is off to you, my friend. When you say you laid it all out there, oh you're laying it out there. Wow. God is gonna fill this all up. The healing that you receive from every letter that you've written, every letter that forms a word. I pray that God multiplies the blessings upon your life. Chapter. Our house was never a home. My childhood was stolen from me around the age of 6 years old. 6 was when my first memories of sexual assault by the overlord my mother entered a long term relationship with and with whom we moved in with were cemented. He wasn't my nor my younger brother's father. Our mother was pregnant with their child, her third child, but the first of more to follow with him. I'm not sure what number it was for him at that point, but when he died, it was speculated by his family and others that he had fathered somewhere between 30 and 40 children, all conceived before or overlapping during and after his relationship with my mother. He was much older than my mother, and he was able to provide her with the image of stability that she so desperately wanted others to see and approve of and envy. He was a well-known businessman in the small town community that we lived in. He was admired by white people who believed he was a leader and a fine example by their definition of who was of who and what was of who and what a good, hardworking black man should be. He was envied and feared, yet respected by black people who also believed he was the narcissist, drug pushing, womanizing, cutthroat thug that he proved himself to be. Mm. It was because of what people believed and feared about him outside of our household that allowed everyone to completely dismiss and carelessly safeguard all the horrible things he did inside of our home. My mother gave birth to another child, but unfortunately, the baby didn't survive. I was too young to understand the details of how my little sister died, but I'm almost certain that the effects of stress on my mother's body due to her frequent drug use combined with her baby daddy's increased possessive behavior and brutal beatings had a hell of a lot to do with it. Our mother gave birth to two more children, a boy and a girl, roughly 10 months apart. Of the two, my brother, due to a careless decision made by another relative, was struck by a car at the age of 9. Interested, interestingly, that same relative won a lawsuit because of my brother's injuries. It was a terrible accident, but he survived. He did have to learn how to walk and talk all over again, though. He was understandably never the same after the accident. He had to be on meds and he required regular caretaker assistance. Ironically, the family member who was the cause of my brother's accident and who also won a lawsuit and enjoyed the financial rewards of his suffering refused to provide adequate care for him, even though the money from the lawsuit was supposed to go towards his upkeep. Hmm. Wow, that's crazy. Imagine that. Against all odds, though, my brother still improved. Eventually, the family member handed him off to a group home. He went back and forth between various group homes and attempted to live on his own for quite some time due to continuous and alleged abuse by group home workers, as well as heightened mental and emotional health reasons. When we were both much older, at his request, I agreed to help my brother relocate and get better treatment, support, and possible exposure to better opportunities. Despite his physical abilities, he was fugging he was fudging brilliantly beyond his years. I was surprised to hear from him, but certainly not shocked when he confided in me that he was tired of being abused by strangers and neglected by family, and he simply wanted a fresh new start. Oddly, the same family member who didn't support him but still managed his finances interfered and insisted that I simply wanted to use my brother for the money that she was receiving for him. She convinced him, as well as other family members, that I wanted to do to my younger brother the exact thing that she was, in fact, doing. Wow. Although she profusely denies this, she apparently feared not being able to continue the manipulation any longer if I, as his big sister, stepped in to help him. I had little recourse, limited understanding, and lacked legal guidance as I lived in a different state at the time and had no knowledge about my brother's financial or the stipulations and full extent of the challenges surrounding his disability. All I knew was that I loved him and I wanted to help him when he called to ask for my help and expressed how unhappy he was. I look back with regret about having given up without a fight, especially since that was the last conversation my brother and I ever shared. From what I later gathered, he was able to live a somewhat routine life, but oftentimes there were moments when he didn't do so well, moments when there was no one available or willing to be there for him in the capacity that he needed. Eventually, he got frustrated with needing someone but not having anyone, so he stopped taking his meds. He stopped listening to all the voices in his head, and he decided to stop living. The news thread reads that he was found face down in the bottom of the pool at a local hotel. According to bystanders who worked at the hotel, one of my brother's eyeballs was found in the bottom of the pool after his body was recovered from underwater. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Apparently, the elevated pressure from the buildup of water thrust it out. Being forced to attend the funeral of my little sister as a child and not understanding the concept of death left me traumatized to the point that I, as an adult, still struggle to attend funerals, especially in honor of loved ones. I didn't attend my brother's funeral. I was heartbroken and it was just too painful. The last memory I have of my little sister was being wrapped in a pastel blue baby doll clothing and lying in an infant sized shoebox because she was so tiny. I decided I didn't want a similar memory of my younger brother. By the way, there was another lawsuit due to the alleged negligence of the hotel where my brother drowned, as well as the mental health facility where he lived at the time of his death. Guess who won and enjoyed those lawsuits? Yep, you guessed it. The same trifling family member who gave zero about him during the time that he was alive. Wow. That, yikes. That that was a heavy one. That was heavy. That chapter titled Our House Was Never a Home. Wow. That's that was wow. I commend you, Tasha. I commend you. Next chapter. Whew. Closets full of secrets and unhappiness. And I think I might stop on this one. I mean, live. I'm reading the book. The book is amazing. Y'all, the book is amazing. You must get the book. Closets full of secrets and unhappiness. My mother had another child, my baby brother, but there's always been this unnecessary debate as to whether this baby boy had the same father as the three born before him. I say the argument is pointless because it's obvious that the overlord is not my baby brother's daddy. And that's on Mari. And that's on Mari had a paternity test. He looked nothing like him when he was born at all. You may recall a few paragraphs back when I mentioned the rumors about my mother being promiscuous. Well, as it turns out, those weren't just rumors. My mother was a hoax. Straight up, no chaser. Wow. Hey, look, this is her memoir. This is her story. So it is what it is, and I'm here for it. God bless and God rest her mother's soul, but yeesh. Says straight up, no chaser. But hey, that was her community, her community, her community coochie, and that was her truth to deny. Having multiple sexual partners at once and being confused about who the father of her child might be was her thing, apparently, and it only seemed to corroborate the rumors about her not really knowing who my father was as well. Incidentally, my mother named my baby brother after the father of the man who she denied having an affair with. Now that was some gangster. Bleep bleep, wasn't it? Make no mistake about it, though. I love and adore the heck out of my baby brother. Back to when I was only 6 years old, that's when the molestation, the threats, lies, and abuse began, and it continued for several years. Even though he threatened to beat my and hurt my mother if I told anyone, I told my mother anyways. I told her because I wanted her to make him stop. I wanted her to protect me from him, but she did neither. As an alternative, she made me her pawn. I believe that to avoid his fury of violence and physical abuse towards her, she obliged him by simply turning her head from his sexual abuse towards me. Plus, since he was a known hustler in the community, he could supply her with any number of drugs that her heart desired. Sadly, using me as a pawn didn't prevent the beatings. It just delayed them because he always found a reason to beat the crap out of her anyways. My mother was present and my mother was present and perfectly aware of what was happening to me. Wow, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about that. Tragically, she disconnected from me mentally and abandoned me emotionally long before she left me physically. I had rationalized that part of the reason he chose to do all of this to me was because I wasn't his child. We weren't blood related, so he had no legitimate obligation to me. My assumption that he abused me because he had no blood relation to me was dashed when I learned years after the abuse that he had, in fact, sexually abused his own biological daughters from previous relationships as well. Can you imagine the lack of humanity combined with the extreme level of disgust that had to have existed within this grown behind man who who continuously ignored the tears of a fragile, defenseless child while he repeatedly tore into her, demanding that she stop whining, be quiet, be still, and just take it? Doesn't that imagery just make your blood boil with rage and your heart shatter in pain? Because although you can't visualize that little girl being hurt by his monster by this monster of a human being, you can't rescue her from him. I pleaded with my mother to stop him again and again. Instead, she just watched him leave her bedside, knowing full well he was coming to mine. When the abuse began, my childhood came to an end. As I got older, he dictated where I went and what I did. He took me to school, he picked me up from school, he took me to the grocery store to do all the family shopping. I was designated to go with him to buy all the clothing and school supplies for myself and my younger siblings. I was stripped of a normal childhood. I couldn't have schoolmates come over ever, nor could I visit or stay overnight or away from the house for any extended period. I was turned into his secret but visible object of desire, a sick and perverted obsession. And I was my mother's secret yet noticeable target of scathing resentment. Wow. I understand. You're right, Tasha. Don't I think what moves me is because I can relate um to this more than you know. But I do understand what you're saying. I understand that that little girl survived. I survived, so I get it. But it's hard not to read it and see myself in this position. And I would want to beat him up. I want to beat him up. We could double team him. Uh, okay. So, okay, where was I? I was turned into his secret but visible objection of desire, a sick and perverted obsession. And I was my mother's secret, yet noticeable target of scathing resentment. I became a misidentified threat as my mother no longer recognized me as her daughter, but as someone with which she was in direct competition. Yeah, I understand, Tasha. I do, I get it. I'm telling you, like as I read your words, these raw words, I I knew that when people read this, they would, and I said this in the beginning, that you will either find yourself or you will recognize someone else. This is powerful, my friend. And I say kudos. This book is powerful. This is just the beginning. I continue to read. It says, I was my mother's secret, yet noticeable target of scathing. I already read that. My mother never stopped him. But oddly, she became increasingly interested in the details of what he was doing to me. Whenever she cautiously returned from her mysterious disappearance after leaving me alone with him, she would always ask how far he had gone or what he had made me do this time. But she never, ever, ever even attempted to stop him. I got tired of praying to God. I was uncertain. I got, I got tired of praying to a God I was uncertain of. Once again, I was disappointed by my prayers to a God who wouldn't make him stop hurting me and make my mother leave him, even though he kept hurting her too. I began to resent my very existence. I felt disgraced, discarded, and I blamed myself for what was happening to me. I hated my life, my mother, and him. I received mixed messages from the outside world as well because it conflicted with the reality of the world I was living in. How could a God who supposedly loved me so much not save me or protect me from all of this? How could I possibly believe that there even was a God when I lived without any evidence that there was? I became an emotional disaster because my screams for help were ignored by God and my voice of pain was silenced and ignored by every single one of the adults around me. Eventually, the beatings my mother endured from him got so bad that she ultimately had to be coerced by other people to leave him because she wouldn't have left otherwise, even though it was only temporarily until the black eyes healed or most of her visible scars had gone away. The invisible wounds remained, though. My mother, my siblings, and I went back and forth between the home of different relatives and a few of my mother's friends on the regular. Some of those moves would serve as stints of relief, albeit short lived. On the other hand, oftentimes it would be like jumping out of the frying pan directly into the fire as I became open prey to other older male relatives or the male relatives of my mother's friends who had their own filthy sexual agendas in mind. I was convenient. I wasn't protected and I wasn't safe no matter where we ran to because there was always another male relative, live in or family friend lurking and waiting. I remember specifically asking one of my older male relatives why he was touching me. He replied straightforwardly, because you're already damaged goods. So why not? Wow. I was 12 years old and he was grown. He was grown with daughters of his own. But then, like clockwork, sadly, we would always return to the overlord, and the cycle would repeat itself over and again. It was sadistic, for lack of a better word, to describe the level of familial incest that existed within my family. the number of men within my extended family, as well as most of the men within the circles my mother ran in, who were morally bankrupt, lacked self-control, and saw nothing wrong with exploiting children. There are those who grew up within the same community as I did, who managed to escape or avoid altogether the immoral boundaries we were all restricted within, as well as those who have experienced varying levels of success and fame, and who had upbringings and lives remiss of the kind of trauma that I'm immediately familiar with and have written about here. I honestly, however, don't believe a better word could exist to adequately explain the sinister stronghold of spiritual despair and darkness that resided within the confines of the small city of Fort Myers, equal uh, unaffectionately called Fort Misery. Girl, and you know it, by those who would agree with how I saw it during that time. It was as if an evil spell had been strategically cast as a bondage blindfold over the eyes of the collective Black community, and the people under the spell were forced to choose one of three positions. Hey, Lydia, how are you? Hey, Nikki. I am reading a book. It is a very new book, just launched today by one of my very good friends, my childhood friends. This is her memoir. Um, it is raw, it is deep, it is her story, and I'm honored to read it. I'm extremely honored to review it. I have been fighting back tears as I read it. It is Lydia. It's a great book. You got to get the book. Um, I've already ordered it. I ordered the e copy just because I can't wait. I'm going to also get the book once it's out. It is out. Once it's uh, she's able to mail them out. But the book is such a good read. This is my personal friend. I grew up with her, and she told me don't cry. She's actually been on here. Her name is Tasha. Her author name is Tasha Denese. She is my friend, Tasha Denise Bellamy. I love her, and I am even more proud of her, Lydia, right now as I read her life story, because I grew up with her, and some of this, we grew up in the same city that she just mentioned, Fort Myers, and yes, they did call it Fort Misery. The things you just don't know when you're young. I continue to read. I'm going to go back just a little. She says, I honestly, however, don't believe a better word could exist to adequately explain the sinister stronghold of spiritual despair and darkness that resided within the confines of the small city of Fort Myers, which equals unaffectionately called Fort Misery by those who would agree with how I saw it during that time. It was as if an evil spirit had been strategically cast as a bondage blindfold over the eyes of the collective Black community, and the people under the spell were forced to choose one of the three positions: fear of transcending the borders of the matrix we were all stuck within in order to be set free, live a life fully desensitized and obvious to the existence of the depravities within our collective community, or continue to hypnotically sleepwalk, conform to, and obey the orders of darkness. Ah, you said a mouthful. Even more troublesome was the extent of which my mother, aunt, and various other female relatives, as well as women within their circles, went to refute, ignore, and protect the behavior of these men who were their spouses, lovers, and in some instances, their sons. Some of these women, including my mother, were victims of domestic abuse and sexual assault themselves. Even though they knew and understand what was happening to me, I was a resented child for exposing family secrets and dark truths that most of them had securely hidden and tucked far away. I was I was adulticized and vehemently blamed, disgraced and avoided and discarded altogether, just so the image of the men in their lives could be preserved, and so the women themselves, who were all actual adults, could continue to avoid facing the harsh reality and consequences of their own shameful experiences. These women protected the sickness of the pedophiles within our family and community harder than the congregations of some of these organized religion. Oh, let me say this again. These women protected the sickness of the pedophiles within our family and community harder than the congregations of some of these organized religions protect their pimp slapping and spit smudging politicians. I meant pastors. I meant both. Heck, many of them speak from the same divinely embellished pulpits or heightened platforms and wear the same designer suits with eco-friendly drawers on underneath. That's funny. That's funny. So there's that. That's good. That is good. All right. Let me see. What time is it? Okay. I'm gonna read this next one because I really want to share. I want to get to her trauma caused my pain, and that's where I'm gonna end. Okay, that's where I'm in. You got to get the book. You got to get this book. You can get this book on Amazon. You can get this book on Kindle. It is a like I don't want. When I started reading it 2 days ago, I literally didn't want to stop. Um, it's literally a page turner. You just want you want the story not because of the trauma, but yes, because of the trauma. But I want to get to the survival, the success. You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right, Tasha. So um okay, so since she said I can't give it all away, she's right. She's absolutely right. I do want to encourage y'all to get the book. Lydia, get the book. You may have friends in your age group that actually would benefit from this book. You may, like I said, I believe in reading. When reading this book, you're either going to find yourself or you're going to recognize someone else that you know. And if that is the case, tell them about the book so that they too can enjoy the book. So the book as a whole, it has a lot to go. But I do want to let me read this last one and then I'll stop live. I'll stop the live. Okay. All right. This is my I actually purchased this. This is my purchase copy, but because I did purchase the book today. I purchased it. So yay. I'm sure I'm probably not the first one, but I hope I'm amongst the first. The book literally just launched today. It was just released today, and I was so proud to purchase it. So, even though um, she allowed me to read it before it was released, but I, I support and I am honored to purchase the book, and I encourage you to get the book, read it. Um, yeah, read the book. My husband, I read to him, and he was just like, "That's good. That's good. It's a page turner. It really is." I could see this on film. This book right here could go on film. It really could. I speak that into the atmosphere. Really? Uh, well, you know what? Listen, I'm the first of many. I'm the first of hundreds. I I I speak that, Tasha, into the atmosphere. I'm the first of hundreds, and I encourage my friends, um, and I encourage my family to purchase that book, support the book. Um, this is our friend, and You may be surprised at what you come to know, um, especially for those of us who came from and grew up in Fort Myers, i.e., Fort Misery. Mm. So this is the final chapter that I will read out loud today. Okay. I love to read out loud. I do. I enjoy it. So this is titled Running Scared. I remember the last time, right before that one time that was supposed to be the last time, that happened just before that other time. Girl, when I tell you this, that is so classic. I love that. Y'all hear how she opened this chapter? This chapter is titled Running Scared. She says, I remember the last time, right before that one time, that was supposed to be the last time, that happened just before that other time, that he nearly beat my mother unconscious and sexually assaulted me again. We left again, and my mother took us to live with yet another one of her friends again. My mom's friend was also a mother of a young son, but thankfully she didn't have a man who lived in her home with them. This time my siblings and I were split between households. Two went to live with a relative and two went to live with other family friends. And the remaining two, which included me, remained with our mother. Don't get it twisted. I was old enough to babysit at that point. My mother kept me around for the sheer convenience of being able to pass her responsibilities off to me. Never because she wanted me with Never because she wanted me with her. This appeared to be the final stint because it was the longest period that we had ever been gone from him. By gone, I mean temporarily removed, because we were never really gone from him. In the past, we had never been split up like that before either. I knew we wouldn't remain separated, but my other siblings, I knew we wouldn't remain separated from my other siblings for too long or continue to live in my mother's friend's tiny 2-bedroom apartment. I was relieved at the thought of us finally being gone for good. My mother's friend was a few years older than my mother was. She was divorced and more established than my mother as well. She had an actual job, was responsible, and didn't take any crap, which meant that she couldn't charm or manipulate his way into her home or see us the way he did with most of my mother's other friends. He also couldn't intimidate her or buy his way back in the way he did with a few of our relatives either. I appreciated this friend. I was grateful for the protection that being in her home offered. I was glad that I was finally safe, or so I thought. Eventually, after a couple of months, my mother vanished. She decided to leave us all behind this time without a word of warning, without a note, without a goodbye or a promise to return. Nothing. I returned from school one day and she was gone. Everyone suspected that he had something to do with her disappearance because, of course, his constant calls and the daily and nightly drive-bys stopped as well. But because no one saw him take her or knew where she or knew when she left, we could only make assumptions about where she may have been. I remember being terrified, thinking because she had finally left him that he had decided to finally make good on his constant threats of deadly punishment. I envisioned her being inside of an adult side version of my little sister's shoebox. Wow. After After what seemed like weeks of not knowing where she was for certain and not getting any cooperation from him, the police were finally summoned. Within hours, they found my mother at his home with him. They were both so jacked up on cocaine that neither one of them could distinguish between myself or the police officer once we arrived. I ran up to the front door, kicking and banging, yelling and demanding that my mother be allowed to come out of the house. It was the same home we had all lived in just a short time before, together as a family. The home where he had broken my mother's jaw and knocked out several of her front teeth. The house of horrors where he had once taken his sinister time to straighten more than 25 wire coat hangers and twist them together to form a steel trap. He then ordered my mother to lie face down on the bed while he deliriously lashed her back right in front of me until the shirt and panties he allowed her to keep on were soaked with blood. Wow. The very home where he had pistol whipped her in, one of the very home where he had pistol whipped her in one of his many drug induced fits of rage, the home where he had sexually assaulted me repeatedly. How on earth could she return there? With all the pain and violence that had happened within those walls, why would she want to return to this place? I became sick to my stomach as I listened to my mother assure the police that it was her choice and that she wanted to be there, that she wasn't being held against her will at all, but was instead a consenting adult spending time with and trying to reconcile with the man she loved. I was 12, frail and petite, but at that moment, I was filled with so much rage that I had to be restrained by the police officers as I lunged towards him, kicking, punching, and spitting on him. I screamed, "No, he's making her say that. She's lying. He beat her and he raped me. She doesn't love him. She hates him." I was hushed and hauled away by the few family members who were there. I had to be carried to the car and made to leave after I threw up and fell to the ground. Feelings of incredible, um, incre- uh, girl, I love that you use these words, but you're making my brain work tonight. Feelings of incredulity took over as we drove away, and I replayed the words my mother had uttered to the police in my mind. If I ever needed a message that I meant nothing at all to my mother, she delivered it loud and clear that night. I decided that if she truly loved him, then she must really hate me. I was already broken, but her choice to remain with him shattered me even more. That message left a scar so deep that it remained with me and was conveyed by my mother continuously to me over and again. My mother eventually left him again. By then, my siblings and I had been shuffled around to different households a few times over. I had been reluctantly taken in by an aunt who lived in a city a couple of hours away from my mother. Ironically, though, despite all of my family's dysfunction, I longed for my mother's presence. It was all I understood and all that I was familiar with. I didn't know what a normal family environment was supposed to even look like. Ah, well, that, my friends, is newly launched book by new author, soon to become a bestseller, I promise you. The book is titled Overcoming the Drug Addiction I Never Had, written by Tasha Denese, my friend, my school friend. I love you, girl. Um, oh, wow. I can only imagine, um, Tasha. I can only imagine. Hey, Sister Patricia. Yeah, I have been reading. Yes, listen, I just saw what you said, Tasha. I see this. This should be on screen. This is this truth. Your truth is deep and heavy, and it is your story, but it is many. It is the story of many. I there are already lots of parts that I can 100% relate to, that I could easily be in this book. This is awesome. I applaud you again, my friend. I do. I applaud you. Sister Patricia, I encourage you guys to support my friend, but get this book. This book is good. I have only read the first, I believe, maybe four chapters, and it is heart wrenching in the beginning. I know that the book does get better because that's my friend and I know her. I know how her story ends, or at least this story. This is her memoir. I love this title, Overcoming the Drug Addiction I Never Had. The title is everything. And so I encourage you all to support her by purchasing this book. This book is available right now. Today, it just launched today. It was just released today. You can purchase it on Amazon. The It is just under $17. It's $16, I believe, and 99 cents. I think that's awesome. Most books start out, and I think that they're well worth it. 20 or more, $25 or more. And I buy books because I read books. And I am honored to read this book because this is my friend who laid her own raw life out, um, overcoming the drug addiction I never had. This is a powerful book. It is a story about her tragedies, but it is also a story about her triumph. And so I look forward to that. Yes. Well, Lydia, you see that the author of this book is right here with you. She's listening at me. This is her baby, and I would be doing the same thing, she's watching over her baby, her book. And so I'm so honored, Tasha. Thank you for trusting me to review and to read this book. I will be continuing. I'm gonna finish the book tonight, and I've already read. I just went back to read those parts live. I want people to hear and be drawn to this book. Um, it's very good. I mean, these next chapters, they are something else. This next one, her trauma caused my pain. That is such a good uh chapter. They are good, but this one I really do like them. I like this. This is good. Awesome job, Tasha. Congratulations. um I celebrate you, sis. I do. um I wish that we were close because we would be doing all the things. Oh my God. Yes, Sister Patricia, you should get the book for her as a gift. And this may be able to encourage her that she can survive. She can survive. And I love that Tasha, that you are honest about your feelings. And for me, because I've been through some of these tragedies myself, I know what it's like to feel like you're calling out for help to an unseen God, and even to the people right around you, only to feel ignored, left out, abandoned, neglected. And this story right here, it's not a story just to be told. This is your actual life. And can nobody tell your story like you can? Thank you so much for your vulnerability, for being open enough to share what the world would call shame and fears. And when you put it out there, when you open your own door, when you draw back your own curtains and tell your own story, yeah, I applaud you, friend. I do. Awesome job. Awesome job. Y'all get the book. Get the book. You've got to get the book. I cannot wait to get my autograph copy. I can't wait to get my autograph copy. And um yeah, so I'm honored to have read these first few chapters for your hearing. I do hope that it has drawn you in. I encourage you to get the book, uh, not just for yourself, but get it for someone else. Someone else may need the encouragement and strength from these words. So, yeah. All right, y'all. Tasha, I pray that I've done these first few chapters just by reading them. Thank you for your permission to do so. Um, I love you, friend. I'm here for you. Call me for whatever. Um, you got to make another trip out to Cali. Yeah. And I maybe I need to make a trip out there this year. I told my husband that I wanted to commit to seeing my friends this year. So maybe we can plan something. Maybe we can plan a trip. You got a passport? Let me know. You got your passport? Maybe we could do a trip. I got my baby brother in Spain, and I want to go see him, and I need a travel partner. You got your passport, girl. But anyway, so yeah. Um, we have to do something. I celebrate you and I honor you for this. And yeah, I just can't wait until the announcements of bestseller come out. And when this does get into the right hands at the right time, and we can see this life story on screen. Yeah. And you're in the place to do it. You are in the place to do it. So I hope so. Please come. You do have your passport. Ah, girl. We got to do something then. Let's plan a girls trip. A girls trip. We could do something. Even if you do, I don't know if you cruise or whatever, or you want to travel a specific place. You know, but yeah, we should talk about that. Think about it. Think about it, and let me know. Let's see what we want to do. Let's plan something. All right. That would be good. We're getting older, not old, just older. Yeah. I'm proud of you. I am so proud of you. All right, let me get off of here. It is 8:49 here. I know it is 3 hours later where you are, my friend. To those of you who joined in and listened, thank you so much. If you know anything about me, of course, I'm Lorenda, and to some people, I'm Reverend Lorenda, and to some people, I'm just Ren. All right, and but I enjoy reading, but I especially there was no way, and I'm so honored. I didn't even. I'm so glad that you let me know about this, and I'm honored. I'm so honored. I may post a small bit of this. This really does need to get in the right hands, and I'm praying, God, that you would open the door. Lord, we know that you were always there. I've asked those same questions before in my life. Um, why and where were you? Um, I can say that I'm in a season where I realize that it took all of that to become who I am today, and to have the strength and the mindset and the heart that I have today, and I'm grateful for that. And there are many things about life I don't understand, but what I do know is I do trust. I personally trust God that that's how I made it through. Is the part I don't even understand, I just trust. So thank you for sharing this with the world, because that's what you've done. You've shared it now with the world. And this book reminds me of another book I read, God, about 30 years ago, titled Yesterday I Cried by Yana Van Zant, who wasn't popular at that time. And I remember picking that book up and reading it, and I couldn't put it down. And this is how I feel reading your story. Now, the difference is between you and Yana Van Zant is I didn't know her, and she became very famous. You, I know. I've known you from my childhood, and to see such it's all of that that's able to push this. You This is all of what you've gone through is what has enabled you to birth this, and this is one of many. And I'm excited. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you, friend. All right, y'all. Yeah. Yep. So I am gonna get my real cute self off of here. I'm gonna probably, I don't know, I want some hot tea. Mm, I love my tea, but I had two amazing good cups of tea today. It was so good. I may have a little left over. I love you, girl. I love you. You better have chills, child. God, this is about to do something. I don't know the timeline, but I know that this is going to do something. I'm excited for the doors that are opening for you. The doors, and take every opportunity. Go do it. Podcasts, reviews, interviews, all of that. Get this book out. You want to get it out to people. It needs to get into the right hands. It really does, and you're in the place to do it. Yeah, you're there. You're already there in the place to do it. So I love you. I love you. I love you. Good. I love you all. I love y'all so much. Lydia, get the book, honey. Sister Patricia, get the book for that young lady. It is not by chance that you happen to stop by and you happen to know someone that is dealing with certain things. This may be an encouragement to them. This may add to their strength, right? This may add to their survival. So I encourage you to do that. Get that for her, for your friend that you're helping. What a nice gift to someone. I love you too, Lydia. I do. Um, when my husband and I get up to Sacramento, I will make sure to let you know so we can probably get together and grab some lunch and all of that good stuff. Or if you're ever out this way, or you want to just take a trip down to Ventura, where I'm at. It's beautiful. I'm like, what, 10 minutes from the beach? Yeah, come on down here. I love the beach. Come. All right. So Tasha, let me know when you want, just when you want to take another trip out, a visit out. We would love to host you. Come visit, come hang out for a little bit. And yeah, it'll be enjoyable. All right. All right, y'all. I'm gonna go. Let me get off of here. I'm gonna go probably heat me up a little something else to eat. And then I'm gonna finish reading. All right. All right. Thank you again. I love you, Tasha. God bless you. I speak blessings over this book in Jesus' name. I pray that today's first purchase is multiplied 1,000%. I do. And I'm not, this ain't no witchcraft or none of that. I'm speaking what I believe. I believe in the power that I breathe out of words. They create. Yeah. My breath came from God who created all things. So when I speak, I ought to be able to create. You created something. It was a thought, and now it's a creation. It's actually here. Your baby, your book, Overcoming the Drug Addiction I Never Had, was a thought, and now it is evidence. Yeah. Yeah. So we now speak that it will get into multiple hands. But I want to see it get into the hands of someone who can do something dynamic with it. I want to see this. I want to see this story on screen because I can see it. You wrote it so well. I literally can see it in my mind as I read. I feel all of your words. Yeah, you're a real writer, a real writer. Tasha, you're a real writer. You ain't just writing words, you're a real writer. Girl. See, the enemy thought he tried too hard to destroy you. That's, I can relate to that. He tried to destroy you. And God allowed you to keep surviving, even though you felt like you didn't see him or he didn't hear you or whatever. Because I've been there too. I questioned him. Even I've questioned, why me? And you know what? I ain't going to tell you what he told you. I'll tell you in private company. But yeah, girl, I'm proud of your work. I'm so proud to know you. And don't, now when you get in your little glory, Don't you forget me. When I'm like, hey, I know her. Let me in. Tell them to let me by. Tell security to let me come through. Yeah, I mean that. When you get into your glory, don't get new, but don't get too new. Let me come through. Let the security let me in. Okay. That. Oh, listen. Yes, yes, girl. This book is that. And you will feel every word. I feel every word that you've written. I know you laid it all down in this. Hey, I'm gonna come right along. You'll see me pretty smiling now. Yeah, and I put on a cute dress and everything. However you want us to represent, we're gonna be right there. Yes. Yep. Yep. I'm excited that see you saying it. I'm for real, for real. Oh, I'm so for real with this. I already see it, Tosh. I see it. I see it in my mind's eye. And so I pray that God put it in the right hands. Be expeditious about it. We welcome you to move it quick. Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. All right. Let me get off of here. Girl, go get you a good night's rest. This is the just the beginning of greatness for you. Just the beginning of greatness for you. All right. I love you, sis. I really do. All right. Night, night, y'all. Maybe I can do a book signing. Hey, yeah. Oh, if you're gonna come to California, you're gonna have to bring books and we could set up. You could set up. We could set up something in our church. We could do something in where I live. Oh, book. That's easy. That is easy peasy. And you should be looking for those kind of things even there. Bookstores and things like that because it's purchasable now. Listen, I would even recommend, like, honestly, you should reach out to Lady Vicky Kemp, whose book that I've done both, read both of her books, amazing books, good books. But she could be a person who could give you some advice as to how to set those things up. You may already know it. I'm just throwing it out there because she's already done it. But I already see God moving your book very quickly. And just I see amazing, wonderful things happening, and I see the progression of this book on screen. I do. That it should be. This story should be visualized because I can see it as I read it. Yeah. All right. All right. Okay. I love you. Good night, Sister Patricia. Good night, Lydia. Good night, y'all. Good night, Tasha. I love you, girl. Call me anytime you want to. I love you for real. And we'll talk soon, okay? Or whenever. You can call me anytime. So, all right. Amen.